He woke before the first light, when the lane behind the market was still quiet and the cats were the only creatures moving. Rafik washed his face at the tap, tied the faded apron around his waist, and checked the coins he had saved in a tea tin. He liked to count them twice, not because he distrusted the numbers, but because the sound of coins clicking made him feel in control. Today he needed milk, sugar, and tea leaves. He also needed hope. School fees were due in 3 days, and he had almost enough, almost. He pushed his wooden cart toward Empress Market, its small wheels bumping over the cracks in the road. The sky was soft grey with a promise of heat later, but the morning air was cool on his neck. As he walked, he greeted the watchman at the corner, the newspaper boy on the bicycle, and the woman who fed pigeons in the open square. Rafik tried to greet people by name, it made them smile, and the smile made him feel like he belonged to this city, not just to the hard work of it. He believed in small neatness. He wiped the counter even if it looked clean. He lined up the glass cups like soldiers on parade. He rinsed the kettle twice before the first boil. His father used to say, if a man serves tea, he serves a moment of rest. Rafik had kept that line in his heart for years. When the cart was ready, he set out a tiny jar of cardamom pods and a jar of fennel seeds, not because many asked for them, but because it showed care without words. The first customers arrived in ones and twos. A rickshaw driver ordered extra strong. A tailor wanted his tea sweet and light, the color of evening sunlight, he always joked. A college student brought exact change and asked about the price of powdered milk in the wholesale shop. Rafik listened more than he spoke. People liked to be heard. He did not push conversation, but he did not rush it away either. If someone needed to talk about a sick mother or a small victory, his stall allowed it. By mid-morning, office workers swept in like a wave. Rafik moved with easy speed, holding 3 cups in one hand, tipping the kettle with the other, and sliding notes into the metal money box with a thumb. Steam rose in white ribbons, the smell of tea and ginger made a kind of warm shield against the dust from the street. Every now and then, he glanced at the small photo tucked under the glass tray, his son in a school uniform, one hand raised in a shy salute. The photo reminded him why he stood on his feet all day and why he counted coins twice. He had ideas that he did not always say out loud. He wanted to add a small awning to the cart so customers could stand under shade when the sun climbed high. He wanted a new kettle with a tighter lid so the boil stayed even. He wanted a sign painted by the art student who sometimes stopped by with charcoal on his fingers. Rafik's honest tea, always fresh, he imagined the sign saying in neat letters. The word honest mattered to him. It was not a boast. It was what he wanted his son to learn by watching a father's everyday choices. Near noon the breeze changed, and the sky turned a deeper grey. Street sellers folded their cloths a little tighter. A woman hurried past with a sleeping child on her shoulder, and the child's hair lifted in the wind. Somewhere, a sheet of metal clanged, somewhere else, a motorbike sputtered. Rafik looked up, sniffed the air, and smiled. Rain would come, just a light one, and then the city would smell like wet earth and diesel and something clean on stone. He loved the first minutes of rain, when people laughed at the surprise of it and turned their faces to the sky. A young man in a crisp shirt arrived, tapping his foot and checking his watch. He ordered tea and added, "Please make it quick, bye, I have an interview." Rafik nodded, stirred the pot with a steady hand, and placed the cup before the minute passed. "Good luck," he said. "Breathe slowly before you enter." The young man blinked and smiled. "Thank you," he said, then left with a straighter back. Rafik returned to the boil, pleased in a quiet way. He could not give anyone a job, but he could give them calm. Soon the drizzle began, soft at first, then slightly more insistent, with tiny beads dotting the cart's wooden surface. People drew closer to the stall, making a little circle of warmth and talk. Someone mentioned a cricket score, someone else argued about a bus route, an older man told a funny story about forgetting his own umbrella while trying to sell umbrellas. Laughter rose like steam. Rafiq refilled the sugar jar, wiped the counter again, and worked with the rhythm that comes to a person who knows his craft and respects it. He never minded the rain, but he worried when it pooled near the wheel of his cart, because old wood could swell. Between orders, he pushed the cart a few inches to the left where the ground was slightly higher. The move brought the stall under the edge of a shop's awning, and Rafiq nodded in thanks to the shopkeeper inside. People notice mutual care, he thought. That noticing is its own kind of currency. He made a mental note to bring 2 cups to the shopkeeper later without charge. Not charity, thanks. Around this time, just past the lunch hour, the crowd usually thinned. Office workers went back to desks, drivers returned to routes, and the city took a slow breath. It was Rafiq's favorite time. The clatter softened. The rain slowed to a whisper on the awning. He could hear the distant call of a vendor selling roasted corn and the squeak of a bicycle chain that needed oil. He poured himself a small cup, not too sweet, and leaned briefly against the cart, feeling the wood against his shoulder blade. The moment was not special to anyone else, but it was special to him. His phone, a simple one with a cracked corner, vibrated in his pocket. It was a message from his son's teacher reminding parents about a reading competition next week. Rafiq smiled, imagining his boy standing in front of the class, voice steady. He replied with a short thank you and an emoji his son had taught him to use. When he slid the phone back into his pocket, he noticed his hands, the skin a shade darker where the steam had brushed it for years, the nails clean, the knuckles nicked from moving crates. Hands that told the truth about a life, he thought. A new customer stepped up, a nurse by the look of the uniform under a raincoat. Her face was tired but kind. "Just a small cup, please," she said. "Long shift?" he asked softly. She nodded. "But we do our best." Rafiq understood that phrase, it was his phrase too. He brewed her tea with a pinch of cardamom. When she took the first sip, her shoulders dropped a little, and her eyes brightened. "Perfect," she said. He felt a warm satisfaction, the kind that doesn't shout. He watched her walk away under the light rain, the white shoes careful on wet stone. Now the square was almost calm. A pigeon flapped up from the curb, shaking raindrops from its wings. A bus pulled away, leaving behind a blank patch of road that gleamed like metal. Rafiq took a cloth and cleaned the edge of the counter where sugar had stuck. He stacked the cups again, even though only a few were left. He liked to be ready. Ready for the next person, the next small task, the next chance to be fair. He believed that preparation was a kind of respect for the people who would come and for the self who would serve them. He bent to pick up a spoon that had slid off the tray. As he straightened, a soft sound caught his ear like a buzz wrapped in a cushion. He glanced around, curious but not alarmed. The rain had quieted so much that small sounds felt larger. The buzz came again, brief and faint, then stopped. Perhaps a motorbike behind the stalls, he thought, or a doorbell from the shop. He wiped his hands on the apron and reached for the kettle to top up the pot, careful with the angle so the tea leaves bloomed evenly in the swirl. The drizzle thinned to a mist, and the air smelled like wet brick and ginger. Rafiq poured a last cup for himself, letting it cool on the counter while he folded the cloths in a neat square. He looked out at the lane, where a child held a paper boat to the edge of a puddle and laughed when it sailed a short distance. The laugh made him smile without thinking. He loved how quickly joy could appear in an ordinary place. He took a sip of his own tea and felt the warmth go down, slow and steady, like a small promise kept. He thought about the rest of the day. Perhaps a rush would come at 4, when people left offices early because of the weather. Perhaps he would sell out of milk and close a little before sunset. He would stop by the wholesaler for a price check on tea leaves, then walk home by the quiet back lane where the neem tree stood. On the way, he would think of what to cook and whether he could fix the loose hinge on the cupboard with the small screwdriver he kept wrapped in cloth. Simple plans, but plans make a person feel guided. Just then, the soft buzz returned, closer this time, like a bee trapped in a jar. Rafiq paused, tilted his head, and let his eyes move slowly across the small world of his stall: cups, jars, kettle, tray, cloth. The sound stopped again. He almost laughed at himself for listening so carefully to a noise that meant nothing. But habit made him faithful to details. Details mattered in tea and in life. He leaned forward to move a stool back under the counter, and as he did, something on the ground near the wheel caught a whisper of light in the pale afternoon. He did not reach for it yet. He finished his sip, set the cup down gently, and wiped his hands once more, the way he always did before handling anything new. The city was quiet around him in that small pause, as if the rain itself were holding its breath. Rafiq felt calm, like the moment just before water boils and releases its energy. He took one step, then another, and then he bent slightly to look more closely at the small object that had reflected the soft grey sky. Whatever it was, it had found its way to his cart, and his next choice would matter. He bent closer and saw it clearly now, a phone, thin and bright, lying just beside the cart's wheel where the ground rose a little. A faint light trembled under the glass as if the device itself was taking small breaths. Rafiq crouched and picked it up with careful hands, the way he handled hot cups: gentle, steady, respectful. The screen was smudged with tiny dots of rain. He wiped it with a clean corner of his apron, and the display woke up, glowing like a small window in the grey afternoon. For a moment he only looked. He had never owned a phone this new. The edges were smooth, the back shone like a mirror. A thread of worry tugged at him. Expensive things made honest people nervous, not because they wished to keep them, but because they feared being blamed for them. He turned the phone over slowly, checking for a case, for a name, for anything that would tell him who had lost it. The buzzing sound came again, short and soft, and a banner slid across the lock screen, a calendar alert from City Heart Clinic, a reminder about a patient follow-up at 2:30 p.m. He took a breath. A clinic. Maybe the owner worked in healthcare, like the nurse who had just left. He tried the side button to see more. The lock screen showed the time, a tiny weather icon, and a stack of unread messages with only the first words visible: lab results, and where are you, and call when free. He did not try to unlock it, he would not dream of that. He only wanted a clue. He scanned the edges again and saw a small sticker near the charging port, half peeled, with a number that looked like a staff code, CHCER27. Rafiq stood, holding the phone in both hands, and looked around the square. People were still moving along the edge of the market, heads covered against the thin rain. No one was searching the ground. No one was patting pockets in panic. But he knew how lost things worked. Often the shock came a few minutes later, after the person reached for the device and found only air. He pictured someone pressing pockets, looking under chairs, turning back. The thought made him move. He placed the phone on the clean metal tray beside the cups, as if it were a guest to be looked after, and reached for the kettle to give his tea a final stir. He did not want to leave his cart messy, even for a short time. He poured the last of the tea into a steel flask he kept for himself. He wiped the counter, capped the sugar jar, and slid the money box under the shelf where it hooked into place. Then he lifted his small chalkboard sign and wrote with neat strokes, "Back in 20 minutes. Thank you." He added a smiley face, simple and sincere. Before he covered the cart with the plastic sheet, he walked to the nearby shop and tapped the frame. The shopkeeper, who sold pens and notebooks, looked up. "Bye, I need to step out for a bit," Rafiq said. "I found a phone. I think it belongs to someone from the clinic." The shopkeeper nodded, eyes kind. "Leave the cart under the awning," he said. "I'll keep an eye." Rafiq thanked him and set the plastic so that rain could run off without pooling. He took a deep breath, picked up the phone, and slipped it into the dry inner pocket of his apron where it would not slide. He set off toward the direction of City Heart Clinic, which was a 10-minute walk if the roads were clear. The drizzle had softened the dust, and the air felt cool on his face. He passed the umbrella seller still telling jokes, past the tailor who waved a sharp pair of scissors like a conductor's baton, past the bus stop where a group of students were laughing under a single shared umbrella. The city felt familiar and big at the same time, like a crowd of friends in a space that could still surprise him. As he walked, the phone vibrated again. He took it out, careful not to press anything. A call was coming through from a contact saved as home. His heart lifted. He could not unlock the phone, but the green button to answer appeared on the lock screen. He tapped it. "Hello," he said, voice steady. "Hello, hello." A woman's voice, tense and hopeful, came across the line. "Who is this? Is this Sarah's phone?" Rafiq spoke slowly and clearly. "I found this phone near my tea cart by Empress Market. I am on my way to City Heart Clinic to return it." "Oh, thank God," the woman said. "She has been looking for it. She's at the emergency ward. Can you come to the staff entrance? I will tell security." The relief in her tone felt warm even through the small speaker. "Yes," he said. "I am walking now. 10 minutes. "Bless you," the voice said, and the call ended. Rafiq put the phone back in the inner pocket and quickened his pace. He felt light and focused, as if the path were a thin line he could walk without stepping off. At the same time, a tender worry brushed his thoughts. If the owner was a staff member in emergency, perhaps she needed the phone for patient updates or family calls. He remembered the lock screen words, "Lab results." Time could matter. He lengthened his stride. The clinic's pale building appeared ahead, its glass doors sliding open and shut in a steady rhythm. People moved in and out, some in uniforms, some in street clothes, one with a little boy in a red cap holding a balloon. Rafiq approached the security desk near the staff entrance, where a guard sat with a ledger and a serious expression. "Salam," Rafiq said politely. "Someone called from home on this phone. They asked me to bring it here." He kept his voice calm and open. He had nothing to hide, but he knew that security people listened for tone as well as words. The guard looked up, eyes scanning Rafiq's face, his apron, his hands. "Whose phone?" he asked. "I think her name is Sarah," Rafiq said, careful not to sound too sure. The contact said emergency ward. The guard took a moment, then picked up his own desk phone and dialed a number. "Emergency," he said. "A man is here with a phone. Says it belongs to Sarah." He listened, nodded, then covered the mouthpiece and asked, "Your name?" "Rafiq," he said. The guard repeated it into the phone, then hung up. "Wait here," he said, softer now. "Someone is coming." Rafiq stepped aside, letting people pass. He stood near a poster showing a simple picture of a heart and a message about making healthy choices. He thought of the choices that had brought him here: the careful stir of tea, the extra step for shade, the small pause before he picked up the phone. It felt strange and right, like a path that had been there all along but lit up only today. A young woman in scrubs and a rain-sprayed jacket hurried down the hall toward him. Her hair was pulled back, her face clear with purpose even in worry. "Are you Rafiq?" she asked. "Yes," he said, and took out the phone. "I found this near my cart." Her eyes filled with sudden relief, and she pressed a hand to her chest. "Thank you," she said, voice catching. "I'm Sarah." She reached for the device, then paused. "May I?" He smiled. "It is yours." She took the phone and unlocked it quickly. The screen showed a long list of unread messages, one flashing at the top, "Lab results available for Mr. H." Sarah's fingers moved fast. "This is for a patient who needs a medication change," she said in a quick, grateful breath. "I couldn't access the system without my two-factor code. I was about to run across the street to borrow a computer." She looked up at him fully now. "You just saved me a lot of time." Rafiq felt a gentle warmth spread through his chest, like tea on a cold day. I am glad, he said simply. He did not want to make a story out of it. It was enough that the right thing had found the right hands again. Sarah typed a short reply to the lab, then turned the phone to silent and held it tightly as if it were a part of her uniform. How did you know to come here? She asked. He told her about the lock screen alert, the staff code sticker, and the call from home. As he spoke, he kept his words plain and spare. Home, that's my mother, Sarah said with a soft laugh that let out some of her tension. She calls whenever I don't answer in 3 minutes. She motioned toward the hallway. Please wait a moment. She stepped aside to send a quick voice note. Am I, phone mil gaya? Acha insan laya. Sab thik hai, she said, then returned. She says to thank you again. Rafiq nodded, feeling shy at the kindness in her eyes. The guard at the desk looked a bit kinder now too. You did a good thing, he said in a quiet voice. Not everyone would walk over in the rain. Rafiq smiled. It was not far, he answered. He did not add that he had closed the cart and paused his earnings for this. He did not think of it as a loss. It was a choice that felt clean. Sarah reached into her jacket pocket and took out a small note, folding it once between her fingers as if unsure. Please, she said, let me pay for your time. Or at least buy tea for your next customer. Rafiq took a soft step back and shook his head with gentle steadiness. No need, he said. If you like tea, come by my cart someday. I will make it with cardamom. That will be thanks enough. She studied his face and understood he meant it. Then I will come, she said. And I will bring friends. He gave a small nod, then glanced at the corridor where staff moved quickly and quietly, each with a task that mattered. He felt there was nothing more to do here. I will go now, he said. My cart waits. Sarah's eyes brightened. Wait, she said, and tapped her phone to open the camera. May I take a picture of your sign so I don't forget the stall? He told her the corner and the simple name he liked to imagine, Rafiq's Honest Tea, though the sign was still in his mind more than on wood. She typed it into her notes. I won't forget, she said. Rafiq thanked the guard, nodded to Sarah, and stepped out into the gentle rain. The city greeted him the way it always did, with small sounds, a horn far away, a laugh near the curb, the soft brush of water on leaves. He walked back the way he had come, past the students with the umbrella, past the tailor, past the umbrella seller now doing a slow, funny dance to show how well his umbrellas could twirl. On the way, he noticed more than before. He noticed a boy tying his shoelace for his little sister. He noticed a driver moving his car to make room for a passing wheelchair. He noticed how the rain pulled dust from the air and left it clearer. He felt a quiet lightness, not pride exactly, but a sense that he had aligned his inside and his outside. He had done the thing his father's line asked of him, serve a moment of rest not only with tea, but with trust. When he reached the market square, his cart stood just where he had left it, dry under the plastic and watched over by the shopkeeper, who gave him a small salute with a ballpoint pen. Rafiq returned the gesture with a grateful grin. He lifted the plastic sheet, shook off a few beads of water, and set it aside. The air carried the cool of rain and the promise of afternoon customers. He set the kettle back on the small flame, checked the milk, and measured the tea leaves with his steady spoon. The routine felt familiar, like a song he knew by heart. As the water warmed, a thought came to him like a simple line written on a clean page: sometimes, the world tests you with something small that is not small at all. A phone on wet ground. A choice to walk. A voice that says, please, wait here. He smiled, turned the flame a little lower to keep the boil gentle, and reached for the jar of cardamom pods. He crushed 2 under the flat of his spoon, releasing a bright, sweet note into the air. Customers began to return, one by one, like birds to a wire after a passing shadow. Missed you for a minute, the rickshaw driver joked. Where did you fly? Rafiq poured tea and said, just a short walk to help someone. The driver nodded in approval and took his cup. The nurse in the raincoat appeared again, perhaps finishing a call across the street. She gave him a small wave that said she understood more than the words he had spoken. Rafiq's hands kept moving, cup to kettle, kettle to cup, sugar to spoon. His work felt the same and somehow more. In the soft hum of the afternoon, the city lifted its face from the rain and carried on. Rafiq's cart glowed with steam and warmth. Somewhere not far away, a young doctor answered a lab message and made a decision that would help a patient. Somewhere very near, the tea reached the right color, deep and comforting, and he poured it with a steady hand, grateful for the chance to do ordinary things with care. The day had turned a page, and the words on it were simple and good. The afternoon opened like a new page after the rain. The clouds pulled back, and thin sunlight broke across the market roofs. Rafiq's kettle hummed, his hands moved in their steady dance, and small lines of customers formed and faded. The rickshaw driver returned for a second cup and told a light joke. A student asked if he could pay tomorrow because his bus card had swallowed his last note. Rafiq smiled and said yes. The day felt right, and yet a quiet echo of the clinic visit stayed in his chest, like a bell that had been touched and was still singing very softly. A little after 3, the art student with charcoal on his fingers appeared with his usual shy grin. He held up a notebook where he had sketched the card in quick, lively lines: the cups, the jars, the small money box, the kettle's steam twisting like a ribbon. This is good, Rafiq said, truly pleased. One day, you will paint my sign. The student laughed. One day soon. He snapped a photo of the sketch with his phone, then of the card itself. People should see honest work, he said. He posted the picture with a short caption and a warm emoji. Within half an hour, 2 more customers came with their phones already open to that post. "Bye, is this your stall?" one asked, tapping the screen. There was the cart, the cups in a neat row, the candle of steam rising. "Yes," Rafiq said, feeling a little embarrassed and a little proud. "Very nice," the customer said. "My office group is sharing it." He ordered 2 cups and took a third for the man at the shoe repair bench, a quiet person who rarely left his tiny wooden seat. Rafiq felt grateful that kindness could travel on tiny screens as well as in spoken words. Not long after, a different kind of post began to move. A stranger with a quick headline habit had taken a photo of the clinic's entrance and written a sharp, catchy line: "Street vendor walks into ER with doctor's phone, what really happened?" It was not untrue, but it asked a question that pulled attention in a less gentle way. People in the comments did what people do. Some wrote praise. Some wrote doubts. A few wrote unkind guesses. They did not know him. They did not know the calm voice of the guard or the fast hands of the young doctor or the simple act of walking in the rain for 10 minutes. They only knew a photo and a sentence built to stir. A college boy showed Rafiq the post while waiting for his tea. "Don't worry," the boy said quickly, "most comments are nice." Rafiq nodded and poured with a steady hand, but a small weight settled under his ribs. He was not afraid, but he felt how fast a story could run without shoes. He did not use social media much. He did not have time for the tug and pull of it. He had cups to rinse, milk to watch, a flame to keep correct. And he had a promise to himself that his work would be the loudest thing he put into the world. Still, the words on the screen had a way of pressing in. By 4 o'clock, the after-office crowd began to appear. The rain had cooled the streets, and people wanted something hot. Rafiq's small circle filled with the sound of spoons touching glass and friendly talk. In the middle of that pleasant noise, 2 municipal officers in neat grey shirts approached the row of stalls. They were doing their usual round after a rain, checking that drains were clear and carts were not blocking the narrow runoff paths. "Move a foot back," one said to a fruit seller. "Raise your tray," he told the man who sold bangles. When he reached Rafiq, he knelt to look at the small puddle near the cart's wheel. "Shift a little to the left," he said. We want the water to run. Of course, Rafiq replied. He waited until he had poured 2 more cups, then carefully lifted the cart handles and edged the wheels to the left slow, watchful, making sure nothing slid. The officer nodded, satisfied. Thank you, he said, and moved on. Rafiq wiped a ring of water from the counter and looked at the new angle of his cart. The sign was slightly less visible from the lane now. He would need to call out more gently to people who might miss him. It was a small shift, but it asked for attention, and attention was the craft of his day. While he settled into the new spot, a man in a crisp shirt and shining shoes stepped into the circle with a careful smile. He introduced himself as a reporter from a small online channel that covered local stories, good deeds, neighborhood efforts, light human news. I heard something about a phone, he said. May I ask questions? His voice was polite, but his eyes searched for the angle that would turn a simple act into something larger. Rafiq wiped his hands and nodded once. He would answer simply and keep the tea moving. He did not want to disappoint waiting customers. The reporter asked when he found the phone, why he decided to bring it to the clinic, whether anyone offered him money, whether he had been tempted to keep it. Rafiq answered in plain words. He did not use big phrases. He did not speak of being a hero. He spoke of a sticker, a call from home, a walk in the rain, a grateful doctor, the sound of a guard's voice. Between answers, he lifted the kettle, poured, stirred, and placed cups on napkins. Do you think honesty will bring you business? The reporter asked suddenly, eyes bright with the shape of a headline. Rafiq looked up. I think honesty lets me sleep, he said softly. Business comes and goes. Sleep stays. The reporter blinked, then smiled a real smile, not the front of camera one. That is a good line, he said. He recorded a few more seconds of tea pouring, thanked Rafiq, and stepped aside to send the clip to someone on his team. People around the stall who had pretended not to watch let their curiosity show and asked for extra cardamom with their tea. Rafiq worked with a focused calm. He liked that the interview had not disturbed his rhythm too much. He liked that he had answered without fear. And yet he knew how words could be cut and pasted into shapes he did not intend. He sent a small wish into the air that the clip would be kind and clear. The day streamed forward. A light breeze brushed the square. The art student returned with a friend and shyly left a little paper sign he had made, Rafiq's Honest Tea. The letters were neat, the edges were trimmed cleanly. Rafiq felt his throat grow warm. This is too fine, he said, but he placed the sign carefully by the jar of fennel seeds where the camera in people's minds would catch it. A group of office workers clapped in a friendly way, the sort of small applause people give when a simple thing feels right. Then the small weight under his ribs pressed again. 2 men stood a little apart, looking at their phones, pointing toward the cart, speaking in quick bursts. One shook his head. The other made a face that said, who knows? They did not come close. They did not order tea. They tapped their screens and walked away. Rafiq didn't follow them with his eyes. He poured the next cup. But a part of him understood. The other post, the one with the question mark, had found its way into a few minds. Doubt travels fast, he thought, even when it is not invited. Around 5, the clinic's nurse from earlier returned, this time without her raincoat. Her face looked less tired than before. She held a small paper bag. My favorite biscuits, she said softly, and set the bag on the counter. For you. Rafiq tried to refuse, but she shook her head. Please accept, she said. You helped our day. He thanked her and placed the bag under the shelf, promising himself he would share it with the shopkeeper and the shoe repair man. The nurse ordered 2 teas and stood by the cart, not in a hurry. Her presence, calm and friendly, put a clean edge on the air around the stall. A few people who had been hovering came forward to order as if her standing there had signed a quiet letter of trust. Just as the light began to turn golden, the phone in Rafiq's pocket buzzed. It was his own phone this time. He wiped his hand again and checked the screen. A text from the school, reminder, fee due in 2 days. Office closes at 2 p.m. The line was simple and neutral, but it touched the old worry in him. He did a quick count in his head. Today had been good, yes. But milk had cost more this week, and the new place he had to rent for storing the cart overnight had raised the fee slightly. He was close, but not quite there. Almost a word he knew very well. He set the phone aside and focused on the next order. When money matters pressed, there was a temptation to let them show in the hand. He refused that. Each cup got the same care. Each stir took the same number of circles. Each customer got the same warm look. He remembered his father's voice, do the small thing right. The big thing follows when it wants. He would keep his path straight for 2 more days and then see what the world did. Near sunset, the reporter's short clip went live on the channel. A teenager who had been scrolling raised his phone for others to watch. Rafiq's hands were in the frame, the kettle shone softly, his voice said the line about sleep. People around the stall smiled at the sound of it. In the comments below the clip, names he did not know typed sentences he would never read, some with stars, some with hearts, some with simple words like good and respect. The earlier sharp post did not disappear, but it had a new neighbor now, a clearer shape that told a gentler truth. Still, not every ripple was smooth. A man in a suit stopped briefly by the cart and said in a dry tone, "Stories are stories. Who knows what happened before the camera?" He did not order tea. He did not wait for an answer. He walked on. Rafiq did not follow him with his eyes either. He handed a cup to a grandmother with henna on her palms and thanked the art student again for the paper sign. He thought of rivers after rain, how they run a little muddy before they clear. He could stand steady on the bank. As the sky turned peach and then a deeper blue, a small group appeared at the edge of the square. In front was Sarah from the clinic, hair loose now, face bright with relief from a long shift completed. With her were 2 colleagues and, to Rafiq's surprise, the security guard who had watched him with careful eyes earlier. They came straight to the cart. Sarah raised a hand in greeting that felt like sunshine after cloud. "We promised to come for tea," she said. "We have come." People nearby looked up with interest. Faces turned. The little circle around the cart grew by a few feet. "Welcome," Rafiq said, and his smile carried the whole day inside it. He made 4 cups with cardamom, each one carefully measured, each one placed on the counter like a small gift. The guard's face, serious by habit, softened into something close to a grin at the first sip. Sarah took her cup and closed her eyes for a second at the taste. "Perfect," she said, using the same word the nurse had used hours before. It was a simple word, but it landed like a soft hand on a table, assurance without noise. A whisper ran through the circle, "That's the doctor," someone said. "From the clinic." Another whisper, "He took her phone back." A third voice, "He did the right thing." No one raised their voice. No one made a scene. But the air itself seemed to balance differently, like a tray that had been tilting a little and now found level. A few people who had hesitated earlier stepped forward to order. The 2 men who had pointed at their screens were gone, perhaps they had gone home, perhaps they were still scrolling somewhere else. Rafiq did not think of them anymore. The nurse who had brought biscuits earlier gave Sarah a quick wave across the small group and mouthed, "Thank you." Sarah nodded and lifted her cup to Rafiq in a quiet toast. "Tomorrow," she said, "I will bring a friend who loves ginger." He nodded and felt the small weight under his ribs loosen by a thread. The fee reminder did not vanish. Money did not appear in the air. But reputation had taken one careful step in the right direction, and reputation, in his line of work, was a kind of savings account that did not fit in a tin. Evening settled. Lights came on in the shop windows, and the shoe repair man closed his tiny bench. The art student packed his notebook and promised to bring a better sign on thicker paper. The municipal officers returned for a last glance, saw that the drain was clear, and waved a tired hand in a friendly way. Rafiq cleaned the counter as he always did, rinsed the kettle, stacked the cups for morning. He felt more watched than usual, but not in a bad way. Watched like a candle is watched, because it lights a small corner and people are glad it is there. As he tied the plastic cover for the night, his phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. He opened it and saw a short line written in careful Urdu, "Sir, I am the mother who called home. Thank you again. May your child always have open doors." Rafiq read the sentence twice. He did not know how some words could lift the whole body, but these did. He pictured his son's shy salute in the photo and felt the path of the next 2 days shorten by a few steps. He pushed the cart toward the storage lane, the wheels rolling smooth on the wet ground. The city hummed in its evening voice, softer, gentler, with the day's sharp edges rounded. He passed the umbrella seller now folding his last stock, the tailor sweeping his threshold, the newspaper boy counting unsold papers. Each person gave him the small nod of citizens at day's end. He nodded back with the ease of someone who knew he belonged to their map. At the corner, he paused to take one more breath of the air. It smelled like cardamom and whetstone and frying onions from a home he could not see. He thought of the posts online, both the sharp one and the kind one, and he let them drift like leaves in a stream. He could not chase every leaf. He could only keep the water around him clean. Tomorrow would bring its own cups and its own choices. He would stand at his cart. He would stir with care. He would count coins twice. And he would keep his sleep, the good sleep that comes when a person's inside and outside match. He turned into the quiet lane where he stored the cart, locked the small chain with its honest click, and started home, steps measured, back straight. The city lights blinked like small stars all the way down the road. The story was not finished. Something was still rising, like water just before it boils, like the beginning of a song just before the note is sung. Morning came bright and clean, as if the rain had washed the city and left a new layer of light. Rafiq woke before dawn, tied his apron, and walked the quiet lane to where his cart waited under its plastic cover. He unlocked the chain, folded the cover neatly, and touched the wooden side like a friend's shoulder. He checked the milk, the tea leaves, the sugar jar, and the kettle's flame. He liked to begin with small checks, they made the rest of the day feel steady. The water started to hum, and steam lifted in a thin ribbon. The first smell of tea rose warm and sweet. He arranged the cups in a straight line and placed the paper sign the art student had made. It still looked simple, a neat promise on thin paper. He smiled at it and set the jar of cardamom beside it like a period at the end of a sentence. The square was only half awake, a broom whispered across stone, a cyclist rolled by, a cat stretched under a bench. Rafiq poured 2 test cups, tasting for balance. The second pour had the exact color he liked, strong but not harsh. He nodded to himself. Now we can begin, he thought. By 7, the flow of people started, and by 8, the market was fully alive. A few office workers came early and ordered with a little excitement in their voices. "Bye, we saw your video," one said. "That line about sleep nice." Another laughed kindly. "My mother said I should learn from you." Rafiq gave a shy smile and poured their tea with steady hands. He did not know how to behave when people praised him. He found the best way was to keep the cups moving and let the steam talk. Just before 9, the reporter from yesterday returned, not with a camera this time, but with a folded printout. "Morning, Rafiq," he said. "Our short clip did well. People asked for context. So I spoke to the clinic and the guard." He placed the paper on the counter for Rafiq to see. The words were simple and clear. There was a short paragraph from the clinic's administrator saying a staff member had lost her phone near Empress Market and a good citizen had brought it within minutes, that quick return helped access lab results and adjust a patient's medication without delay. There was a short line from the guard, the man was calm and respectful. He came straight to the desk. The reporter grinned. No drama. Just facts. Rafiq read the lines twice, slow. His chest felt warm and neat, like a shelf where everything is in order. Thank you, he said. The reporter waved a hand. Thank you for making my job easy, he replied, then ordered a cup and left to cover a school sports day. Rafiq looked at the printed sheet a moment longer, then placed it under the counter close at hand but not on display. He did not want his stall to turn into a board of praise. He wanted it to stay a place for tea and simple talk. Around 9:30, a small group in grey shirts appeared again, the municipal officers. Rafiq greeted them with a polite nod. The same officer who had checked the drain crouched to look at the wheel, then at the edge of the cart. We're doing a hygiene round, he said in a firm but neutral voice. Any open milk? Any uncovered food? Rafiq lifted the lid to show the milk sealed, the tea leaves in a lidded tin, the clean cloth folded, the waste bucket covered. The officer checked the items with a practiced eye and made a note in a small book. Good, he said. Keep it like this. If you want a sturdier awning, the market committee is approving upgrades next month. Apply early. He tore out a page with a form and handed it across. It felt like a small door quietly opening. As the officers moved on, an older man with a pointed mustache, carrying a briefcase, stepped near the stall. He waited until the officers were a few feet away and then spoke in a careful tone. I read a post, he said. It asked if this story was real. His eyes searched Rafiq's face as if looking for a mistake in a sum. Rafiq did not hurry his answer. He met the man's eyes with calm and said, I found a phone. I returned it to the clinic. The guard and the staff know. That is all. The man held his gaze for a breath longer. Then the nurse from the clinic came walking up, as if pulled by the same thread. She ordered 2 teas and smiled at Rafiq with friendly eyes. The older man's careful look softened a little. 1 tea for me as well, he said quietly. Less sugar. He took a sip and nodded once. Good. He did not say more, but he returned 20 minutes later for a second cup. Proof sometimes looks like a person coming back. Late morning brought a new kind of visitor, a woman in a pale blue scarf and a blazer, with a badge clipped to her pocket. She introduced herself as the administrative officer from the clinic. We wanted to thank you properly, she said. You helped our work yesterday. If you are open to it, we would like to try ordering 20 cups for our staff break today at 4. She spoke like someone who solved problems in neat steps. Rafiq listened with his whole face. I will bring them, he said, careful to keep his voice even. Cardamom and ginger mix, unless you prefer plain. She smiled. Cardamom and ginger. I will send someone to help carry. She typed his number on her phone. We'll confirm at 3:30. Rafiq felt his heart lift like a kite catching wind. He did not jump or clap. He returned to the kettle and watched the boil, adjusting the flame with a gentle twist. But inside, a quiet happiness sat down like a good friend. A firm order at 4 o'clock meant more cups, yes. It also meant a new relationship built on trust and taste. He glanced at the printed form for the awning, then at the small paper sign. The day was arranging itself into lines he could follow. At noon, the square filled again. Office people lined up, students joked, a grandmother told a small story about how tea should be sipped slowly, like prayer. In the middle of that friendly noise, a man in a sports jacket appeared with his phone recording. Sir, quick question, he said, holding the lens close. Did you stage the phone story? People say it was planned to get views. The suddenness felt like a small stone thrown into a pond. Rafiq neither flinched nor posed. No, he said in the same steady tone he used for prices. I did not stage anything. I found a phone. I returned it. The man moved the camera to catch reactions, but the surrounding customers gave only calm looks. The nurse lifted her cup and said on camera, "He brought the phone. I work at the clinic. Please drink tea and relax." The man blinked, lowered his phone, and left with an awkward "Okay, okay." The water smoothed it again. Proof, Rafiq thought, is not loud. It stands like a tree and lets the wind pass. Just after lunch, the art student came with a small roll of canvas tied with string. "I could not wait," he said, eyes shining. He unrolled a fresh hand-painted sign, "Rafiq's Honest Tea" in clear letters, with a tiny curl of steam painted above the word tea. The lines were crisp, the colors were warm. A few people clapped. Someone whistled. Rafiq's hands actually shook for a second, and he laughed at himself. "You will make me famous," he said softly. The student shook his head. "You did that with hot water and patience," he replied. Together, they tied the sign to the cart's top rail. It shifted in the breeze and settled into place like a flag finding its pole. The afternoon moved like a well-made song, each note in time. At 3:30, as promised, the clinic officer sent a message, "Ready for 20 cups at 4. Rafiq read it, counted his milk, measured his tea leaves, and prepared extra ginger. He set aside clean cups and wrote "clinic" on a small paper to keep the order neat. He told the shopkeeper he might need the boy from the pen store to help carry. The shopkeeper grinned and said, "We will make sure your cups arrive like guests." Then a small test arrived that could have turned the note. A customer hurried away and left a brown envelope on the counter. Rafiq called after him, but the man had already crossed the lane. The envelope felt light. He did not open it. He wrote "left" at 3:47 p.m. on it and placed it in the money box area where it would stay safe. 10 minutes later, the man rushed back, face anxious. "Did you see an envelope?" Rafiq handed it over with the time marked. The man opened it in relief, showing a stack of printed forms and a single passport photo. "My job application," he said, laughing at his own worry. "If I had lost this, my wife would have scolded me all week." He bought 2 teas and thanks and told 3 people nearby that the stall could hold your trust like a shelf holds books. The sentence stuck in the air, bright and kind. At 4, the clinic order came to life. Rafiq brewed with extra care strong tea, ginger thinly sliced, a soft pinch of cardamom. The square smelled like warmth itself. The pen shop boy and a young porter from the clinic came at the same time, and together they carried 2 trays of cups across the road. Rafiq walked with them halfway, watching the steam curve like white ribbons. He returned to his cart, wiped the counter, and breathed. 20 cups is not an ocean, but for a small stall, it is a river that proves the boat. 5 minutes later, a message pinged, a photo from the clinic's staff lounge, smiling faces, cups in hand, a caption, "Tea break powered by honesty and cardamom." The photo was not public, it came only to him, like a private thank you. He looked at it for a second, then put his phone away and served the next customer with the same care. He reminded himself, the work is the anchor, not the waves. As the sun lowered, another shape of proof arrived from a different street. A local blogger, known for food reviews, stopped by with a small camera and a big appetite for details. But she did not ask for gossip. She asked about ratios, milk temperature, leaf quality, and how long he let the tea rest before pouring. "People say honest tea tastes different," she said. "Sometimes it is because honesty is also attention." Rafiq smiled at the line but answered with specifics, how he rinsed the kettle, how he watched the color rise, how he avoided boiling the milk too hard. She sipped, nodded, and said simply, "Balanced." She promised to list the cart in her Market Gems note, a list people trusted for everyday food. It was not loud fame, it was a clean line on a map. Early evening brought one more quiet seal. Sarah arrived with her mother, the voice from home. The mother wore a soft shawl and had eyes that held both worry and kindness, as mothers' eyes do. She placed her hand over her heart and thanked Rafiq in words that were simple and full. "You returned my child's phone," she said. "May your days return good to you." Rafiq bowed his head a little, unsure how to hold so much grace in a small space. He poured tea for them both. Sarah's mother took a sip, closed her eyes for a second, and smiled. "This is prayer in a cup," she said. Other customers, hearing the tone more than the words, felt the air soften. Some bought tea for strangers, someone sent a cup to the shoe repair man. The square turned kind in the way regular places do when a gentle truth is shared. Near sunset, the skeptical post that had asked questions the day before added an update. A college boy showed it to Rafiq between orders. The post now carried a short line: "Clinic confirms the incident. Thanks to the vendor for quick action." No apology, no big change of voice. But the question mark had been removed. Rafiq's shoulders dropped a little, a weight undone by a small eraser. He didn't need the internet to agree with him, he needed his work to be clean. Still, it felt good to see Doubt walk away quietly. He cleaned the counter and looked at the new canvas sign fluttering gently. It looked like it had always belonged there. The municipal officer's form rested safely under the money box. The clinic had tasted his tea and asked for more. The shopkeeper had watched his cart and smiled like a brother. The art student had turned admiration into paint. Proof had not come as a trophy. It had come as people returning, as doors opening, as clear words from steady mouths. It had come as an order delivered, a rumor corrected, a mother's blessing. He closed a little later than usual, because people kept coming in twos and threes, wanting to drink the honesty tea before going home. He served each cup with the same care, put away his jars, rinsed his kettle, and tied the canvas sign with an extra knot so the night wind would not pull it loose. As he pulled the plastic cover over the cart, his phone buzzed again. A short message from the clinic officer: "Tea was excellent. Can we make it a daily order at 4 p.m. this week? We'll arrange payment on Friday." Rafiq read the words slowly and let them settle. He did not shout. He did not dance. He placed a hand on the cart's wood and said a quiet thank you to the evening sky. On the walk to the storage lane, the city seemed to hum in tune with him. A driver made room for a cyclist. A child waved to a street dog. A shopkeeper returned a dropped coin to a customer without being asked. The market was the same market, but Rafiq felt the pattern beneath it, a net of small honest acts holding everything up. The turning point in his day had not been one headline or one clip. It had been the slow, steady proof that when a person does the right thing in the open, the world, in its simple ways, nods and makes space. He locked the cart, slipped the permit form into his pocket, and started home. He imagined his boy's face when he would share the news: a daily order, a new sign, the chance to plan for an awning. Tomorrow there would be more cups, more steam, more small choices. But tonight, as he walked under the soft lights, he carried a new kind of quiet inside him, the quiet that comes when questions have found their answers, when doubt has met daylight, and when a simple tea seller's work has been seen, clearly, for what it is. Friday arrived with soft light and a thin breeze, the kind of morning that made the city feel kind. Rafiq woke early, tied his apron, and walked to the storage lane with a steady step. He uncovered the cart and ran a clean cloth over the wood, slow and careful, as if greeting an old friend. The kettle went on, the milk warmed, the tea leaves waited in their tin like quiet seeds. He tested the first cup and smiled at the color. Today was the day the clinic would settle the week's order. Today was also fee day at the school. He felt both thoughts standing side by side in his chest like two polite guests. He opened the stall, placed the canvas sign, and set the paper sign beside it for memory. The square stretched awake, a sweep of brooms, a call from a fruit seller, a bus sighing to a stop. Customers appeared in gentle trickles. The rickshaw driver teased that he was becoming famous. The grandmother asked for extra hot tea and told him to keep his heart light because light hearts pour better tea. He laughed and said he would try. The art student stopped by to straighten the canvas sign and check the knots, as proud as if he had hung a picture in his own home. At 9, an email dinged on his simple phone, clinic payment transferred. He did not rush to check the amount. He served 2 more cups and then, in a quiet pause, looked and saw the neat numbers. They were what the officer had promised, fair and on time. He felt something like a door inside him open and a soft breeze move through. He placed the phone back in his pocket and poured the next order with the same patience. Money is lighter when it arrives in its right time, he thought. It does not push the hand, it steadies it. By 10, he asked the shopkeeper to watch the cart for 20 minutes. He wiped the counter, slid the money box out of sight, and covered the jars. He walked to the school with his back straight and his steps even. The school gate had a line of parents, some chatting, some quiet, all with small worries folded in their bags like papers. He waited his turn, then laid the notes on the counter. The clerk counted, stamped the receipt, and slid it across with a small nod that looked bigger than a nod. "Reading competition is on Monday," she said. "Your son signed up?" Rafiq's mouth opened in surprise and then curved into a slow, proud smile. "He did?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "He said he wants to try." On his way back, he bought a thin book of short stories with clean print and a bright cover. The book felt like a promise made out of paper. He tucked it carefully into his apron and returned to the cart. The shopkeeper lifted a hand, and the world fell back into its rhythm: cups, steam, coins, smiles. He wrote "paid" in small letters on a page in his pocket notebook and closed it with quiet pleasure. The rest of the morning moved like a well-tuned song. Office workers asked for tea to go, students debated cricket, the shoe repair man lifted his cup in thanks for the one Rafiq sent over. Around noon, the municipal officer walked by and gave a quick update: the committee would meet on Wednesday, awning approvals would be simple if the stall kept its hygiene marks. Rafiq nodded and showed the covered milk and the clean cloth once again. He had already filled the form the officer gave him, neat handwriting in every box, and placed a copy under the money box with his other papers. The idea of shade for his customers sat in his mind like a small tree already planted. Afternoon brought the clinic order right on time. The porter and the pen shop boy carried trays like waiters in a grand hotel, careful and proud, while Rafiq walked halfway to watch the steam lift in thin white lines. The staff sent back a photo of empty cups and a thank you note with a row of tea emojis. He saved the photo and turned back to his flame. In between orders, he looked at the awning application again and thought about where the poles would go and how he would tie small strings of prayer flags or maybe just leave it plain and clean. A few minutes later, a supplier he did not know stopped by with a sample packet of tea leaves and an easy smile. "Cheaper," the man said, tapping the packet. "Looks the same, tastes almost the same. You will save a lot." Rafiq held the packet, felt the lightness, and poured a few leaves into his palm. The color looked fine, but his nose told a different story: the smell was thin, a little flat. He thanked the man and shook his head kindly. "Almost the same is not the same," he said. "People taste with their tongue and their memory." The man tried again, softer. "You could mix a little." "Who will know?" Rafiq smiled without anger. "I will," he said. The man shrugged, laughed like a good sport, and moved on to the next stall. Rafiq poured a cup for a waiting customer and felt glad for his no. Late afternoon, a small newspaper stuck his name in a corner column titled "Local Lights." The piece was short, almost shy, just the way he liked: a tea seller who returned a phone and received trust in return. The line about sleep appeared there too. People pointed at the column, then at the cart, then at him, and their smiles felt like soft handshakes. He kept his prices the same. A few customers asked if he would adjust for fame, and he laughed and said, "Only the kettle will adjust." Sarah came by with her mother again, this time carrying a small paper bag as if repeating a scene with a new line. Inside was a jar of homemade lemon pickle that smelled like sunshine, and a handwritten note, for the days that need a bright taste. Rafiq placed the jar gently on the shelf and promised to open it at home with his son. Sarah told him the patient whose lab results she had needed was doing better, the early change in medication had helped. The news landed like a good verse read in a quiet room. They drank tea, spoke for a few minutes, and left with the easy warmth of people who now belonged to the same square of city map. Evening rolled in gentle and gold. The art student returned with a small brush and touched up a corner of the canvas sign where the breeze had scratched the paint. The shoe repair man closed early and brought his little stool over to sit near the cart and listen to the market's last hour. The reporter from the small channel walked by without a camera, bought tea, and asked about the awning application like a neighbor. The older mustached man came for his less sugar cup and did not mention the doubtful post. He only asked how long Rafiq boiled the ginger and nodded at the answer as if taking a lesson. When the rush slowed, Rafiq pulled out the thin storybook, ran a hand over the cover, and smiled. He imagined reading it that night, sounding each line with care while his son followed with a finger. He imagined stopping after a page to ask what a word meant and watching his son's eyes search and then light. He imagined saying, "Try again," and hearing a voice grow a little taller. The picture filled him with clean joy, not the noisy kind, but the kind that sits quietly in a chair and makes the whole room feel warmer. Before closing, he brewed one last small pot and filled 3 cups for the people who had held his day together, the pen shop boy, the shoe repair man, and the art student. They laughed and clinked glasses like children pretending to be at a grand party. The market around them softened into evening sounds: brooms, shutters, a last bus, a small lullaby someone hummed while carrying a sleepy child. He covered the jars, rinsed the kettle, stacked the cups, and tied the canvas sign with a careful knot. The plastic cover went over the cart, but not before he placed a clean sheet of paper under the canvas sign to keep it from rubbing. Small protections matter, he thought. They are how things last. He locked the chain, put the day's notes and the permit form in his pocket, and slipped the storybook inside his shirt like a secret he could not wait to share. The walk home felt like walking inside a good sentence, clear, simple, complete. The lanes were washed with leftover light. A neighbor watering plants waved. A child practicing a poem in a doorway sang a line too loud and then giggled. Rafiq passed the neem tree and touched its rough bark the way some people touch a gate when they go in and out. It was just a habit, but it felt like respect. He reached his building, climbed the steps, and opened the door to his small home. His son looked up from a notebook with a shy grin that pushed one cheek higher than the other. "Abba," he said. "I signed for the reading. I want to try." Rafiq held up the book, and the boy's eyes widened like small moons. They sat on the floor near the fan. The evening was quiet except for the gentle hum of the blades. Rafiq opened the book and pointed to the first line. "You read," he said. The boy began, slow and careful, choosing each word as if picking up smooth stones from a river. When he stalled, Rafiq waited a breath and then whispered the sound. The boy tried again and moved forward. After 2 pages, Rafiq read a page aloud, giving each comma time to breathe, and the boy listened with his head tilted like a question mark that was turning into a period. They read until the fan made them a little cold. Then they ate simple food with the lemon pickle, which brightened everything it touched. The boy talked about a classmate who could run fast, and Rafiq told a short story about his own school days when a teacher had once allowed him to ring the bell for home time. It felt good to let memory ring next to new plans. Before sleep, they packed the school bag together. Rafiq slid the receipt into a safe plastic folder. The boy checked his pencil twice the way his father counted coins twice. When the lights went off, Rafiq lay on his side and listened to the small sounds of the building, a door latch, a water tap somewhere, the low radio of a neighbor. His body felt tired in the good way, worked, not worn. His head listed the day's details without effort: the clinic's message, the school clerk's stamp, the firm no to cheap leaves, the nod of the older man, the laughter of the three friends with last cups, the lemon pickles spark, the steady breath of his son beside him. He thought of the word honest on the canvas sign and how it had turned from dream to paint. He thought of the awning he would soon put up and the shade it would give to people who stood at his cart with their small needs and big feelings. Sleep came like a quiet friend. Before it fully arrived, he heard his father's line in his mind the way one hears the last soft note of a song, "If a man serves tea, he serves a moment of rest." Rafiq felt how the line had grown larger than tea in these days. It was now a way to stand, a way to walk, a way to answer soft questions without noise. In a city that moved fast, he had chosen to move steady. In a world that asked for show, he had offered proof. Morning would come again with its cups and coins and steam and small decisions. He would face them with the same simple tools: clean water, good leaves, warm milk, a steady hand, a clear yes, a gentle no. He would keep prices fair and lids tight. He would install the awning and sweep the drain. He would accept praise like salt, enough to bring out flavor, never enough to spoil the pot. And when someone asked if honesty helped business, he would smile and say the line that had become his truth: honesty helps sleep. In the last light inside his eyes, he saw his cart under the new shade, the canvas sign holding still, Sarah waving from across the road, the municipal officer stamping the form, the art student sketching a new idea, the shoe repair man raising his cup, the pen shop boy running a tray, the grandmother sipping slow, the rickshaw driver telling another joke, his son at the front of the class with a book, taking a breath and starting. The picture made him peaceful. The world was not perfect, but it felt good and close and possible. He slept like a man whose inside and outside matched, and in the morning, he would boil water and begin again.